Hey everybody, welcome. I'm Rob Booker, best-selling author of Adventures of a Currency Trader and Trading by Faith. Happy Friday to you. Today I want to try to build a system based on price action, and I want to do it here right inside this video. And hope you enjoy it, hope you love it. Leave a comment below the video and let me know what you think. All right, here we go. Let's pull up the screen here and we'll take a look at the charts. All right, I've got a daily chart up of the Euro US dollar. And on the screen, I also have Bollinger Bands set to 20-2, so 20 periods, 2 standard deviations. And I've got an indicator on here that will pull up and show a dot, a red dot for reversals that are bearish, and then a green dot that is going to be for reversals that are thought to be bullish. And these are just exhaustion bars, using standard definitions of price action exhaustion bars, like bearish engulfing patterns, bullish engulfing patterns, longed wick star candles, dojis, and those kinds of things. And what I'm looking for in this daily chart, and what I'm trying to construct here, hopefully, is a discretionary trading system. It's not meant to be run robotically or automatically. And what I would hope to be able to do is build a system that runs from daily charts that I only need to check once a day when the candle is printed, on which I can enter orders to open up and then manage those orders once per day. And the only last requirement of this system would be that it has really, really big profit targets, hundreds of pips for profit targets, and something that hopefully I would be able to transfer over and use for equities as well. All right, so let's get started here. What I'm looking for, and what I've decided that I'm looking for, are situations and times when the full bar or candle, or most of it anyway, is all the way outside of the Bollinger Bands. And what I'm also looking for, or hoping to see, are situations where there is a really long wick on the candle, or shadow on the candle. So let's just, so we're going to say outside the bands. That's a requirement. Most of the candle formed is outside the bands, and a really long shadow. And those are requirements. And unless I have those requirements, then I'm not even going to consider the trades. So what I want to do is make these bars, candles, even larger so they're really easy to see here on the video. And I want to talk to you about it. So this one would not qualify, although it's defined as an exhaustion bar. It doesn't qualify because it's not outside the bands, and the shadow isn't very large. This one is partially outside the bands, but the shadow isn't very large, so I'm going to ignore that as well. There we go. So this is the first example of exactly what it is that I'm looking for. Almost the entirety of this candle is outside the bands, and the shadow is really long, representing to me that traders tried to buy, but the sellers came in immediately and said, okay, we're done here. And it's preceded by a really long trend upward. So it would make sense that maybe the bulls are getting exhausted and the bears are ready to come in. So what I want to do in this instance is I want to put an entry order to sell below the low of that candle, and maybe even add a little bit to it. And I'm going to need a profit target. And I guess I could keep this simple, really simple, by just using the bands. I could just use a profit target of the bands. I could also maybe use, you know I love pivots. What if we used pivots? And what if we used monthly pivots? Color those purple. Those look good. So what if I used a profit target of a monthly pivot? That seems completely reasonable. You know I like weekly pivots too. Let's just put those on there too. So we'll add the weekly pivots. Okay. And what I'll look for is missed pivots, and that would help me hopefully get a really good big profit target. So we're going to put an order in below the lows of that bar, and we're going to sell it when it breaks below those lows, and a stop loss maybe above the bar. So we'll just move forward here and see if we can reverse. So we get down to the monthly pivot almost. No, we haven't gotten there yet. There we are. So we've hit the monthly pivot right here. We've fallen and hit the monthly pivot. That's beautiful. Do we get all the way down to that weekly pivot that we liked? We're just going to keep this open, and we do. We get all the way down there. Okay, I like that. That looks really nice. Okay, let's remove all the drawing tools and maybe use a circle here. Wow, that is the largest circle ever drawn on a chart. I don't know why it was that big of a circle. Look at this thing. Let's get rid of that. There we go. That's much better. Okay, this doesn't qualify because the shadow is long, but we're not outside of the bands. So I'm just going to move forward in time and look for something. Okay, the shadow is outside of the band, but the bar or the candle is not. I'm gonna skip it. Oh, that looked really nice though. Okay, so maybe I need to consider trades where the shadow is outside the bands, but for now I'm going to keep my rules as they are. It has to be an exhaustion candle. Shadow and most of the candle body needs to be outside the bands. And look at this. We have a really, really big bearish candle with the shadow outside the bands again. I bet this can get down to this weekly pivot. And it can't. I'm glad I'm not taking those. Wow, there's a lot of time elapsing between these trades because we still haven't found one. Neither of these two qualify for trades, although they do reverse. They don't qualify for trades. I'm looking for a candle body and shadow outside the bands with a really, really significant shadow that is really long. And it may it may take me a long time to find one. It may go a year. I don't really care if it does, actually. Oh, look at this. The entire candle body is outside of the Bollinger Bands. It's probably hard to see that. Let's go red here. There we go. The entire candle body is outside the bands, but the shadow isn't very large, so I'm not going to take that. And that was beautiful and wonderful. And it was super profitable. Okay, here we go. Candle body mostly out of the bands. The shadow is large. Okay, I'm going to take that. I'm going to go ahead and accept that as a possible trade. Here is a missed weekly pivot all the way down here. We can enter the trade if price falls below the low of that candle and try to get all the way down to that missed weekly pivot. That's beautiful. Now it takes a lot of time in between trades here. So maybe that's not exactly the greatest methodology in the world, but I really like the way that looks. Let's look at like something that I didn't even consider looking at, like the dollar Canadian. And we'll just go all the way back to 2012, and we'll take a look. I haven't looked at this at all. I haven't seen this chart at all. There is a candle mostly outside of the bands with a really long shadow. And if we enter on a break below the lows of that bar, then guess what we get? We get a stop out. That stops out. Okay, we'll fire this up again if we get another trade. Here is a shadow that's outside the bands. So I'm not sure I really want to do that. See if we can get a whole bar. Look at this. This doesn't say it's an exhaustion bar, but look at that. That's exactly what I look for. Two entire candle bodies outside the bands. Enter below the lows of that candle. And let's see if we can pull up some weekly pivots. I don't know if we can go 400 back. Oh, we can. Okay, great. And our profit target could be the weekly pivot that was missed down there. Okay, well, it does make some profit, although it reverses. Here's another candle outside the bands. It looks like the dollar Canadian needs a wider stop, but that if you give it a wider stop, it can make it pretty far down here for a pretty big profit target. Wow, it looks like a lot of these are reversing also. Like a commodity currency has a tendency maybe to reverse more often. I don't know. Look at this one, for example. We have a large shadow outside the bands. The body is outside the bands. If we enter below the lows of that candle, we can get down to maybe the monthly pivot. And we do. That's nice. We get all the way down to the bottom bands even. Here's a candle with a really long shadow that's outside the bands. What if we just go ahead and say that this commodity currency qualifies for a buy trade because it's out, the shadow's outside the bands? That looks pretty beautiful. Oh, that's a body and shadow outside the bands, but price has not gone below the lows of that bar or candle. So maybe there's no entry there. And we wait. Whoa, I just made that circle really. There we go. That looks like it enters and then it really goes against us, right? So it's the shadow is outside the bands, we go below. Dollar Canadian looks like it produces a bunch of like false starts to me. Maybe a commodity currency like the dollar Canadian or the Australian dollar, US dollar would be less interesting. And it looks like it needs more room to really get going, right? Shadow and body outside the bars or candles. And then we drop, but then we eventually come back up. Look at a couple more examples. Yeah, that's what we look for right there. That's what we want to see. What about a yen pair? Like something crazy like the pound yen. We could spot check some of these and say, do we see long shadows outside of the bands? Oh, wow. That's amazing right there. Anything else with a really long shadow outside the bands? There's a candle all the way outside the bands. That's pretty nice, right? Like multiple candle bodies just outside the bands. It's not really a reversal or exhaustion bar, but boy, did that look nice. Well, you don't find very many of these, do you? There's one right there. Maybe it works best on the yen pairs. That could be fascinating. I don't know. I'm thinking about building maybe a little system out of this. It's going to take me a while, but I'm thinking about maybe putting some pieces together on this, something that would require maybe just once a day kind of checking in on it. Sounds really interesting to me. It's Friday. I'm super happy to be here together with you. I really appreciate all the views and all the comments and all the subscriptions this week. And thanks for, I don't know, just thanks for being here. I love this time that we have together. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already here on YouTube. and leave a comment on Facebook or on the YouTube video, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye for now, everybody.